Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you've been around here a while, you might remember Berty. He inspired me to try something bigger, and now I'm entering this art that I make today into a gallery in London. Not everyone gets accepted, so no pressure. For this piece, I knew I wanted something magical, something protective, something that felt ancient. I started putting together some images of wolves, towering trees, misty forests, little hints of magic. And that's when the idea clicked. These three are woodland guardians, protectors of the forest and everything that lives within it. There's going to be one mama wolf and her two pups. So let's get started. For the main guardian, who somewhere along the way was named Beatrix, I knew she had to have that same elongated snout that Berty had. It just gives them this wise, slightly otherworldly presence. So I built up her base with an almost concerning amount of tinfoil. Truly, there was foil everywhere. I bulked her out first, focusing on that long, elegant shape. I wanted her silhouette to feel strong before anything else. Instead of fighting a whole brick of clay and destroying my hands, I sliced it into thin sheets and ran it through my pasta machine. Once I had nice flat sheets, I wrapped everything over the foil and started smoothing her out. This is always the stage where they look slightly terrifying, just a smooth, blank creature staring into nothing. The eyes were a whole dilemma. I tried placing them really close together, which actually felt more accurate to Berty's proportions, but she looked rather unsettling, so I lowered them out slightly and spaced them out more. It softened her, she felt calmer, still powerful but just less intense. To build the eyelids, I rolled little clay sausages and blended them around the eyes, which weirdly is one of my favourite parts, is when they start feeling alive. The nose came together pretty quickly. The mouth, however, absolutely did not. I kept overthinking it, so eventually I stopped trying to force a perfect shape and instead added a bit more volume to her cheeks and pressed in subtle lines and indents, just enough to suggest where her expression would sit. Then came the fur texture. This took ages. I wanted her to feel like she belonged in a forest, so I carefully carved in directional lines all over her face. Cutting a hole in her head for the gemstone was genuinely terrifying. There is something deeply wrong about taking a blade to something you've just spent hours sculpting. But once the opening was in, everything started to click. After baking, I set the gemstone in with hot glue, and suddenly she had this quiet, magical energy to her, like the forest had marked her as its guardian. And that's when Beatrix really started to feel real. Now came the slightly unhinged part. I had to stab a hole into the back of her head so the armature could attach, which will never feel normal. There is something deeply unsettling about aggressively poking a hole into something you've just lovingly sculpted. After I glue the armature in place, I then started twisting wire together, fully ignoring the fact that it was absolutely not strong enough to hold the weight of the entire structure. And yes, normally people would use proper armature for their legs. That is a whole other drama. By this point, she looked less like a woodland guardian and more like an ancient Egyptian mummy. When it came to painting, I went back to the same technique I used for Berty, watering down the paint, brushing it over the surface, and then wiping it back with kitchen roll. The pigment sinks into all the cracks and carved fur line, while the smooth areas stay lighter. It adds depth without drowning all the details I spent hours carving into oblivion. And suddenly all those tiny fur lines actually mattered. She started looking less like a padded engineer experiment and more like something that has lived in the forest for centuries. And now we're onto the fabric. This is usually the part where I realise I have absolutely no idea what to say. So instead of pretending I do, I'm just going to let the upbeat music take over while I wrestle with faux fur. I also used leftover fabric from a previous project for her long hair. And I can't unsee it. It's giving real honey badger vibes. This doll took so long because I decided to sew pretty much everything. Normally I would glue certain bits of fabric straight onto the body. It's quick, it's easier, and it's less stressful. But glue can leave those hard, sharp patches underneath, and they just don't feel nice. Since this piece might be going into a gallery, I really wanted it to feel finished from every angle, so I committed to sewing as much as I possibly could. For the ears, I shaped them out of felt, glued that onto faux fur, then added bits of long fur inside to give them more depth. I recently bought a bundle of second-hand beads, and hidden in there were these tiny metal hoops with beads already attached. The second I saw them, I knew they'd be perfect as earrings for Beatrix. After that, I went through some old bracelets, splitting them into a yes and a no pile, and eventually settled on a teal necklace with lots of little bees hanging off it. It had movement and a slightly magical feel, just enough without feeling over the top. And somehow I managed to get it over her head without undoing all the sewing I'd done, which felt like a small miracle. Before you go, this is the end of part 1, but part 2 is out right now. Just click on the video on your screen or the link in the description and I'll see you there.